She stood in the mud with blood streaked across her face, her fists clenched, her eyes burning like fire under the weight of 100 stares. This was not just another recruit. This was a woman who had already lost everything once and had sworn never to bow again, not to pain, not to fear, not even to death itself. If you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button and show some love to her. The rain hammered against the training field as Elena Vega tightened her grip on the rifle slung over her shoulder, her boots sinking into the muck, her breath clouding the damp air while the drill sergeant prowled like a wolf before the line of recruits, barking orders designed to break bones and spirits alike, yet Elena refused to flinch. Her mind was not on the storm, nor the aching burn in her muscles from endless push-ups, but on the image that haunted her every waking hour, the flames of her childhood home, the screams of her parents as she was dragged out by soldiers who claimed to be protectors but had become monsters in uniform. That night had carved her soul into steel, and though years had passed, she had carried the guilt like a weapon, vowing that one day she would return stronger, not as the helpless girl who had begged for mercy, but as a fighter capable of taking on any enemy who dared to stand in her way. The base where she trained was no ordinary camp. It was a crucible designed to filter out the weak and forge warriors ready to disappear into the shadows of wars the world never acknowledged, and every recruit there had their secrets, but none so heavy as hers. Her fellow trainees whispered about her when she passed, about the way her jaw was always clenched, the way she never backed down even when her body screamed for rest, and how even Callahan, the hardest sergeant on the East Coast, seemed unsettled by the fire in her eyes. But Elena's story was not one of training alone. It was the story of a web spun around her long before she knew the pieces were moving. One evening, after another brutal obstacle course run, she collapsed in the barracks, only to find a note slipped beneath her bunk. No signature, no hint of who had written it, just 4 words that sent a chill through her spine: "They're still watching you." At first, she dismissed it as hazing, but the precision of the message cut too deep, and when she stepped outside under the harsh floodlights, she caught a shadow moving across the perimeter fence, too fast to be a stray, too silent to be accidental. From that night, her focus in training doubled, every shot from her rifle more precise, every sprint faster, every fight in hand-to-hand combat more vicious, because deep down she knew she was not just training to be a soldier, she was preparing for the inevitable confrontation with ghosts from her past. The first twist came during a live-fire exercise in the forest where recruits were paired and dropped into dense terrain with orders to navigate back to base under simulated combat. Elena's partner, a tall and quiet soldier named Mason, seemed trustworthy at first, his calm demeanor balancing her intensity, but halfway through the exercise, as gunfire echoed through the trees, she caught him reaching for something hidden in his vest, not a compass or map, but a small device blinking with a red light. She wrestled it from him, demanding answers, but Mason only smirked, muttering, "You're worth more than you realize, Vega." Before she could press him, a real explosion tore through the trees ahead, nothing like the blanks or training charges they were supposed to face, and suddenly the exercise became deadly real. Bullets cracked through the air, recruits screamed, and Elena had to drag Mason, wounded by shrapnel, through the dirt while trying to piece together what had just happened. It wasn't until she saw masked figures closing in, heavily armed, no insignia, that she realized the exercise had been hijacked by enemies who had infiltrated the base. Elena fought like a woman possessed, dragging Mason into cover, firing round after round until the attackers withdrew, leaving only bodies and silence in the night. When the dust cleared, Mason, pale and bleeding, whispered a single confession before losing consciousness: "They're the same ones who burned your home." Her blood ran cold, because for years she had believed it was an accident of war, collateral damage from a raid gone wrong. But now the puzzle began to fit together: the soldiers that night, the strange insignia she had half seen through her tears, and the way she had been watched ever since. Someone had not only destroyed her past but had now followed her into the heart of the military itself, waiting for the right moment to strike. The base went into lockdown, officials blaming it terrorist infiltration, but Elena knew better. She watched as Mason was taken away under heavy guard, supposedly for medical treatment, yet she never saw him again. The note under her bunk, his words in the forest, the attack, it all pointed to something larger, and when she attempted to dig into classified files late at night in the communications room, she discovered that her name was tied to a Black Ops project known only as Sentinel. She was not just another recruit, they had been grooming her, tracking her since childhood, and her parents had been silenced not because of where they lived, but because of what they knew. Every twist pulled her deeper: the betrayal of officers she had trusted, the sudden appearance of an old family photograph in her locker, one that should have burned in the fire years ago, and the realization that Mason had not been her enemy but her reluctant protector, forced into silence by those above them. When Elena confronted Sergeant Callahan, demanding the truth, his mask of steel cracked for the first time, and with a heavy sigh, he admitted that Sentinel was not a training program at all, it was a selection process for soldiers with specific genetic markers, and Elena was the crown jewel of the project, her resilience and willpower making her the perfect candidate for missions so dangerous the government denied they existed. But Callahan also warned her, the same people who made you will not hesitate to break you if you step out of line. The climax came when the base itself turned into a battlefield one stormy night, alarms wailing as traitors within the ranks opened the gates for another assault. Elena, armed with nothing but her rifle and an unyielding will, led a group of terrified recruits through the chaos, holding the line against waves of masked operatives until reinforcements arrived. In the smoke and blood, she faced the man behind the attack, a commander from the same faction that had burned her childhood home, a man who sneered that her parents had died because they had tried to expose Sentinel. The duel between them was brutal, fought with fists, knives, and desperation, and when she finally drove her blade into his chest, she felt not triumph but the crushing weight of truth. Her entire life had been engineered for this moment. When the sun rose over the shattered base, Elena stood among the ruins, her uniform torn, her body bruised, but her spirit unbroken. She knew this was only the beginning, that Sentinel was still out there, that Mason's fate was unknown, and that every step forward would be shadowed by enemies who wanted her either controlled or dead. But she also knew one thing with certainty, that she was no longer the frightened girl ripped from a burning home. She was a soldier forged in fire, and her story was just beginning. From which part of the country are you watching this video?